Hello and welcome to West Country Wanderings. Welcome to one of my short bites. I'm here in a very quiet Cotswold Village in the county of Gloucestershire. I'm in Uley, which is near Cam and Dursley. Now Uley is a beautiful village surrounded by the Cotswold Hills. It's in a bowl of a valley here. We're close to the Cotswold Way, though it doesn't actually go through the heart of the village itself, but you can explore lots of areas from here, including Open Manor, which is actually just a mile down the lane, which is behind the camera. But that's not the purpose of today's video. It's a bit of a strange one, this. This video is all about the story of John. Now John, incredibly, was a gorilla that grew up in the village here and was welcomed by all the villagers. I'll tell you all about it. Now John came from Gabon, which is in French Equatorial Africa, and he came to the United Kingdom via a dealer, an animal dealer called John Hamlin. Now unfortunately John's parents, gorilla parents, were shot in Africa by French hunters, French safari hunters. So he'd lost his parents, he was still young, and he was brought to the United Kingdom. And John, that's the animal dealer John, gave John the gorilla his name, christened him John, taking his name. He brought him to London, in fact, where he was sold at a department store. Now at this point I don't know if that department store was Harrods, because I do know at that time that Harrods did deal in exotic animals. In fact, they sold tigers and lions, incredibly, I know. So it may or may not have been Harrods, but it was certainly a prestigious department store in London. Now, the buyer of John was Major Rupert Perry. Yes, he was an army officer, and he purchased John for an unusual reason, not for himself, but as a gift for his aunt. Wow, isn't that amazing? Normally you might get a box of chocolates or some flowers from your aunt, but no, he decided to buy his aunt a gift of a gorilla. Yes, I know. Her name, his aunt's name, was Uley Cunningham. That's A-L-Y-S-E. Sometimes some of the sources, historical sources, say she was called Edna Cunningham. So Uley, Edna, I'm not sure, but certainly her surname was Cunningham, but I do believe it was pronounced Uley, her first name. Now, Uley lived in Convent Street in London, but she also had a country residence here in Gloucestershire in the Cotswolds, right in this village here in Uley. Now this is where our story gets really, really strange, and she decided to bring John here to the village of Uley, to her country retreat. And she brought John on a train, yes, an ordinary train, from Paddington to Stroud Railway Station, GWR Railway Station, and thence by road to here. Now I understand, because I was thinking, how would you pay for a gorilla to travel on a GWR train? Well, basically he travelled as a passenger. He wasn't strapped in. He was extremely well behaved. When John arrived here, it became his home. He settled here. He had his own bedroom in Uley Cunningham's house right here in Uley. He was befriended by the villagers' children. They would befriend him. He also took himself to bed at 8 o'clock every night on the dot. He was toilet trained. He could use electric light switches in the house. He would walk unaided and unaccompanied around the village freely. One of the things he liked to do was to go to the village cobblers, to watch the cobbler repair the villagers' shoes, you know, banging the nails in, resoling leather soles, that sort of thing. He was fascinated, and he would go and watch the cobbler for hours doing that very thing. The other thing that John liked to do was he was partial to cider, a pint of cider. Maybe he went here to the village pub here in Uley, just off the village green here. I don't know, but he would hold out his glass for some cider, prompting people to fill it up for him. I don't think he was a drunk or an alcoholic, but he did like his cider, just to have a pint of cider now and again. But wonderful. So he grew up in this idyllic village here in the Cotswolds, and even then it would have been less busy. I'm here on an early Saturday morning, but traffic does obviously come through here. It would have been even quieter then, and it's still a very, very lovely place. And he settled him. This was John's home. Unfortunately, things took a darker turn. Now, John had arrived here at the end of the First World War in 1918. So by 1921, he'd actually grown, because remember, he was young. When he arrived, he was around about 50 kilograms in weight. But after 3 years, by 1921, he was well over 80 kilograms. And Elsie decided she no longer could keep him because, well, basically he was too big and too cumbersome to look after, even though to a greater extent he was quite of independent means. I would imagine one of the problems, though, was feeding him. Could have been quite difficult. But so she decided to sell him in good faith to an owner who would look after him and care for him during his adult years. Now, she sold him to an American buyer for 1,000 guineas. That was £1,050, or around about £43,000 in today's money, allowing for inflation. So she sold him to this American buyer in good faith. He would be taken to America and looked after just like he was looked after here in Gloucestershire in England. Unfortunately, what she didn't know was the American dealer had other ideas to make a profit out of him. In fact, he was sold to a zoo/circus troupe. Yes, really not good news at all. He ended up in Madison Square Gardens in New York City. Now, when he arrived there, he ended up pining. He became homesick for here. Well, you can imagine it. This was his home. Though he was born in Gabon, he grew up here in Gloucestershire, in the Cotswolds. So when he got to the circus troupe, he was pining for his homeland here in Gloucestershire, because that is fundamentally all that he knew. It got really quite serious because he then started to suffer quite deeply with depression, and the mental health that he was suffering from was then starting to affect his physical health. He really wasn't well at all. Now, Elsie Cunningham got to hear well-being, that he was not great, and the fact that he'd been sold to this circus troupe in New York City. So she decided to go over to New York to visit him. Now, sadly, by the time that Elsie Cunningham had arrived over at New York City, the other side of the Atlantic, sad to say that John had died. He'd actually died of pneumonia. Well, that was put down as the official reason for death. But a lot of people believed what he actually really died of was a broken heart for not being able to live in this lovely part of the world, surrounded by the people he knew and grew up with. Very tragic tale. But the villagers here in Uley never forgot him. They never forgot him until 2018, where they decided to place a memorial for him right here on the village green. Now, a local stonemason called Sebastian Rasch, R-A-S-C-H, decided to commission a piece of sculpture to remember forever in perpetuity John the gorilla, who lived here in Uley for 3 years. An amazing sculpture it is. It's actually made of Portland stone. Commissioned 2018, and it was unveiled here in early 2019. Let's just have a look at the front design that he came up with. And there it is. And there's the gorilla surrounded by the children from here in the village of Uley. There's a little inscription underneath, and it says, John Daniel of Uley, 1918 to 1921. That was the years that he lived here. But yeah, it's a beautiful memorial, stone memorial here for John, who lived here in the village of Uley. Well, that's it for today, for this short bite here from the beautiful village of Uley in Gloucestershire, right in the Cotswolds, the southern half of the Cotswolds here. There'll be another short bite on the channel. In fact, there'll be lots of other different videos here on West Country Wanderings, so have a look out for those. I'll put some other videos that I've done, some quirkier ones, As I said, a bit of a quirky story today, but I thought you'd find it interesting. I only came across it recently, although I'll go up here. I didn't know about this till recently. What about the grill and all that? I found it an amazing story. Until next time on the channel, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves. Hope to see you soon. All the best for now. Bye bye.